Hey folks, it's Rob and welcome back. We're continuing our series on the Monstrous Compendium Appendix for the Mystara setting from 1994 by TSR. Today's episode is going to be a little longer than usual in that we are going to be covering, firstly, dragons in general, because there is variation from the Compendium. Monstrous Manual is the regular monster manual for the second edition. And then we're going to cover four particular gem dragons for the setting. So settle in. I have a drink here in case I need it, and we'll get started. Dragon, General, page 27. Like other AD&D game worlds, the Mystara campaign features mighty dragons. Some Mystaran species exist nowhere else. Other grace the skies of distant worlds too, but Mystaran varieties may display subtle differences. The table below lists all the dragons currently known to inhabit Mystara. All but four, Crystalline, Jade, Onyx, and Ruby, are fully detailed in the Monstrous Manual. As noted above, some peculiarities distinguish these familiar dragons with the Mystara campaign. Variations are described below, otherwise the Monstrous Manual description still applies. For more complete information on dragons in general, see Dragons, General in the Monstrous Manual. Alignment. More than any other factor, alignment sets Mystara dragons apart from those of other realms. Traditional AD&D game dragons are concerned most about good to evil axis. Chromatic, metallic, and gem dragons tend to stay with their own kind because of their common philosophies of evil, good, or neutrality. On Mystara, the law chaos axis is considerably more important, because this is a three-flavor alignment system primarily in Mystara, with the good, neutral, and evil. Remember, you have lawful, neutral, and chaotic. Yes, on Mystara, the law chaos axis is considerably more important. Dragons who favor order, cooperation, and civilization are opposed by those who endorse individualism, wild living, and destruction. When it comes to good and evil, Mystaran dragons are predominantly neutral. Mystaran dragons who interact with player characters often consider law and chaos first, and good and evil second. For example, a Mystaran gold dragon, always lawful and usually good, probably would assist a lawful man before a chaotic one, whether that character is depraved or princely. On the other hand, it would benefit the cause of law and goodness to assist an individual, so much the better. Mystaran's Dragon Table. So we have here a list of certain dragons and their hit dice and alignment. So Dragon is in the first line category there of, the first column. We have lawful, neutral, and chaotic dragons. Their hit dice are then read across, and then the alignment as percentage of good, neutral, or evil to be found. So um, under lawful dragons, you have, of course, first gold, and they are 16 hit dice. And we have an asterisk next to the hit dice section, so that reads as the hit dice column lists the standard hit dice for a juvenile specimen, right? Alignment has a double asterisk next to it, and that is the percentages listed give an idea of the alignment variations in Mystaran dragons. These are guidelines only, and individual dragon's alignment can be whatever the DM needs it to be for a given adventure. Only the law/chaos part of the alignment is rigid, which is fair enough. So on a gold dragon, 95% of these will be good, 4% neutral, and then interestingly, 1% of gold dragons being evil. An evil gold dragon is certainly would be an unusual experience. Now, Crystalline has a single cross next to it, and so the note for that is Mystara's crystalline dragons are quite different from the crystal dragons from the other AD&D game worlds. They have their own entry, therefore, in this appendix. So we will be getting into their particular details. but they tend to be 15 hit dice as a juvenile, 10% good, 80% neutral, and 10% evil. Ruby, which has a double cross next to it. Like their crystalline cousins, the Ruby, Jade, and Onyx dragons are new species of gem dragons unique to Mystara. Each has a full entry on the upcoming pages. Okay. But it is a 14 hit dice on average for juvenile, 15% good, 80% neutral, and 5% evil. Then we have a Sapphire Dragon listed, 13 hit dice, 5% good, 90% neutral, and 5% evil. Neutral dragons, first one we have is blue, 14 hit dice, 5% good, 80% neutral, 15% evil. Jade has the same note for the as the ruby, and it will have its own entry. 13 hit dice, 30% good, 60% neutral, and 10% evil. So they, tend towards good neutral. Onyx, 12 hit dice for the juvenile, 10% good, 80% neutral, 10% evil. White dragon, which, traditionally wasn't necessarily the nicest dragon to run into. 11 hit dice as a juvenile, 5% good, 90% neutral, and 5% evil. And then of the chaotic dragons, you have the red, which is 15 hit dice for a juvenile, 1% good. Yes, it'd be unusual to run into a good red dragon. 4% neutral, and 95% evil. So, mirroring the gold. Amber/brown has our double mark cross, which the note reads, the monstrous manual includes a brown dragon. Mystarans know this creature as the amber dragon, because its scales, which are normally opaque and brown, become as translucent as amber during key stages of its development, adolescence and extreme age, roughly the very young and the very young and young age categories plus the very old and older. Apart from this variation appearance, the amber dragon's tendency towards chaotic good alignment, they are practically identical to the brown dragon described by the Monsters Manual in terms of habitat, combat, and special abilities. So our amber/brown would be 14 hit dice for the juvenile, 20% good, 70% neutral, 10% evil. Green dragon, always a fun encounter in the wilderness, 13 hit dice, 10% good, 60% neutral, 30% evil. And then the black dragon, fun swamp dwelling dragon I tend to use, would be 12 hit dice, 5% good, 90% neutral, and 5% evil. As we've already read the notes, I'm going to move forward to gem dragons. That is approximately mid down the second column. Gem dragons. The gem dragons of Mystara differ from those of other AD&D game worlds in one key area. Mystaran dragons lack psionic ability. As far as anyone knows, the psionic species of gem dragons do not exist here. As mentioned above, Mystara offers 4 species of gem dragons, all of its own: Crystalline, Jade, Onyx, and Ruby. Like standard gem dragons, these creatures have smaller chance of causing fear than other dragons. The parenthetical fear save modifiers on the Monstrous Manual dragon table apply. Languages. All of the new Mystaran dragons have a chance of being able to communicate with any intelligent creature. The chance is 15% for hatchlings and increases by 5% per age category of the dragon. In addition, these dragons speak their own languages and can be in the tongue of all gem dragons and perhaps others as mentioned in their descriptions. Special attacks and defenses. Remember, besides breath weapons and spell casting, dragons have a whole arsenal of special attacks ranging from fear to tail slaps. Even the least intelligent dragon is very crafty and will use all possible attacks and strategies to the best possible benefit. So, be careful with your dragon. Pictured here, I believe, would be a ruby dragon, which might come over as a bit pink in the scan. It is a little pinkish in my hand, like the highlights are pinkish. It is red, but not red to like crimson red, right? So certainly not fire truck red. Let's move on to the next page, where we have the Crystalline Dragon. Page 28, which is, facing page, as it were. So we're going to move through the entire description of each dragon, as it were. Each one will have its own age category down here and items involved. We'll see. That's a lot of repetition of just table reading, which gets quite dry for anyone to listen to, I would imagine. But let's start at the top here. Well, we have this looks in the scan like a black and white picture, like there is no color to it at all. And in fact, in my hand, it's actually slightly blue, slightly purple. Like the shadow below it is more purpley, while it's actually just slightly tinged blue. And it doesn't come over in the scan really well at all, in my opinion. Shame how that's lost, this little subtle detail, as I think it's quite a good piece of artwork. The artwork in here is generally quite nice, and I appreciate having it all. I just wish that the scan was a little more authentic of the actual experience of holding the book in my hand as I have here in front of me. Maybe we'll do a flip through at some point, just to show the actual physical copy. But it doesn't lie flat, which is why we're using the PDF. Right, Dragon, Crystalline. Climate terrain, cold, mountainous, and any Arctic. They are very rare. They are solitary or clan in organization. Activity cycles any. Their diet is ore, gems, and crystal. So you can imagine they don't actually eat deer, polar bears, any of that kind of thing. They want ore, gems, and crystals. They are of genius intelligence, so obviously they know how to get what they want. Treasure is special. They are lawful neutral. 1 appears, or 1d4 plus 1. We'll get into why that is. Armor class is -2 as a base. Movement is 9 on the ground, but flying 30, class C flyer. And BR is burrowing? Yes, they move underground at 9. Hit dice 15 for the base. To hit AC 0.5 as a base, they get 3 attacks. Their damage per attack is a D12 per claw. We get 2 claw attacks, and a 2d12 for a bite, which is quite nasty. Can be quite nasty. Special attacks varies. Special defense varies. Magic resistance varies. That's going to be depending on the table down below, I believe. They are size G. That is gigantic. 40-foot base size. So, that's a really big monster. Like, a typical mapping scale is like 10-foot square. Yeah. Now just picture that on your map. This sounds fairly like, something like you'd encounter in a cave or outside, but it's going to need to be a big cave. Don't try to cram this into a tight little space. Morale's fanatic. It's not going to break morale. You'd have to do something to cause the morale to be penalized significantly. XP value is variable, and it's going to be depending on the age category of the dragon, which can be, it's 12 different categories, as you can see down there below. So, though they share many traits with crystal dragons of other worlds, Mystara's crystalline dragons stand apart. They boast more hit dice and are larger. Further, crystalline dragons can employ unique breath weapon. At birth, crystalline dragons have white scales that are glossy and opaque, like packed snow. As they age, the scales acquire greater translucence, as if the once snowy scales were transformed into gleaming glacial ice. Under faint light, the scales of a mature dragon luminesce softly. In bright light, venerable crystalline dragons shine so brightly that it pains others to look upon them. Crystalline dragons speak their own tongue, and the tongue common to all gen dragons. Combat. The Crystalline Dragon's breath weapon is a blast of freezing cold identical to the effect of that of a white dragon. The breath appears as a cone of scintillating particles like brilliant shards of ice. The breath weapon's secondary effect makes it unique. A victim who fails the saving throw not only takes full damage, as per the table below, but all his non-living carried items must make a save versus disintegration with +4 bonus, or turn to crystal. If the victim makes his saving throw, the victim takes only half damage and his items are unaffected. Any weapon, tooth, or claw turned to crystal can still be used to attack, but will probably, 1 to 5 on d6, shatter with a successful hit. If the weapon shatters, it inflicts the minimum possible damage for that blow and is destroyed. A Stone to Flesh spell can be used to permanently turn up to 100 cubic feet of crystal items, easily including all items normally carried by 1 to 3 persons, back to their normal forms. This is, of course, provided they haven't been shattered already. A Dispel magic spell also restores crystallized items. Use the age category of the dragon as the opposing caster's spell. So yeah, that sounds real fun for the party. All your stuff's been turned to crystal. But, you are throwing a 40-foot wide dragon at them, so, Habitat/society. The crystalline dragon especially favors glaciers in Arctic and high mountainous regions, making its lair in caves burrowed out of the living ice. It prefers cold regions, where its shimmering scales make it difficult to be seen against a background of ice and snow. Mystara's crystalline dragons are more serious and orderly than their frolicking crystal kin found in other worlds. Ecology. Crystalline dragons subsist on a diet of ore and gems. They are also particularly fond of the crystallized remains of adventurers' equipment, considering them a special taste treat. Glaciers are an ideal home because as they slowly crawl across continents, they scrape up tons of rock and soil. Crystalline dragons use its massive, sharp claws to burrow through the hand-packed ice in search of veins of mineral-rich strata scraped centuries before from the Earth's skin. So, here we have the table, down here on the bottom. Age is 1 through 12, as you can see here on the leftmost column. At age 1, the body length in feet is 1 to 10 feet. That's functionally a hatchling, youngling. Tail length is a further 1 to 6 feet. AC 1. Breath weapon 2d4 plus 1. So its breath weapon is not reliant on the hit points of the dragon itself, and none of these are, as you can see. It has no spells. It has no magic resistance. It has no treasure, but its XP value is 5,000. Now, that hit dice base was, on here. 15. So, and all of this ramps up as we move up in age, right? So, age 2, the body length is 10 to 22 feet. Age 3, 22 to 32, then 32 to 50, 50 to 69, goes all the way up to 142. And the tail length goes all the way up to 87. The AC increments at 1 per age group. So starting at 1, then 0, -1, and so on and so forth until you hit -10. The breath weapon continues to increase basically in line with the level increase as well. It seems to be an extra 2d4 and a plus, one plus one point on the plus side. So, 2d4, 44, 64, 8d4, etc. until you hit 24d4, and you just plug that age in as the plus, so 2d4 plus 12, right? You roll 24 d4s and then add 12 points. They start using spells if they have the ability to use spells, apparently around age 4, where they get a priest spell. And then at age 5, they get 1 wizard and 1 priest spell, and that continues to increase as we go on down. That would be level 1. wizard or priest spell. And then, at age category 6, they get one of each wizard and priest, and then one second level priest. And that's how the table's kind of laid out. So you have to be careful with reading it, that you're keeping track of the fact that the side before the slash is the wizard side. The side after the slash is the priest side, which is what they call clerics in second edition. And wizards is what they call magic users. So, at an age 8, they have 2 first level and a second level wizard spell, and then they also have 2 first level and a second level priest spell. Magic resistance kicks in at age 5 as well at 15% and seems to accumulate a 5% per going forward from there. So up to a 50% resistance at age 12. They start having treasure at 5 with quite an accumulation going on, as befits a massive dragon. Starts with an A and Q. Then we start getting multiple Q and U. Add in H as we move up to 7. And again, multiple Q and multiple U. H never turns into a multiple, but everything else increases dramatically as the thing ages. And the XP value starts at 5,000 for an age 1, goes to 8, then 10, then 13, and 16, 17, 18, 19, 22, 23. Kind of evens off, right? Up to 25,000 XP for that age 12 dragon with the massive pile of treasure. In second edition, you wouldn't be awarded XP for treasure, for cash. But you're playing Beckme. Please feel to keep that in mind. So that's the Crystalline dragon. We still have 3 more to go, and we're going to do that now. Moving on to the other page, on page 29. Here we have our Jade dragon, which is green. It's a very kind of minty green here in the scan. I'd say it's definitely a bit more light jade here in the picture. There is a kind of purple ground shadow below the green rocks it's sitting on, which is really lost in the scan. This here is much more purpley. As is a little purple fringe over here, which is just gone. I don't know why it's lost this like kind of blue element. You can see a little bit of the shadow here under the tail, but it's very faint. But anyway, Dragon, Jade, page 29. Climate terrain, any wooded region. Frequency, very rare. Their organization is solitary or clan. Activity cycle, any. Diet, omnivore. Intelligence, very. Treasure, special. Alignment, neutral. Number appearing 1 or 1d4 plus 1. Armor class, -1 is the base. Movement, 9. That's walking around. Flying, 30 with a C kind of maneuverability. And apparently, SW, I think, is swim. I will double check. I should probably mark that page. I swear. Yep, that's swimming. Don't really think of dragons swimming all that much, but there are some aquatic dragons, really. No, it's not. It shouldn't strike me as that strange, is what I'm guessing what I'm saying. Even though it did be like, swimming. Hit dice, 13 for the base. Thaco, 7 for the base. It gets 3 attacks, much like its other dragon brethren, with 2 claws and a bite. Each claw is a d8, and the bite is 2d10. Special attacks vary, special defense varies, magic resistance varies. We're going to get a lot of that with the dragons. Again, gigantic, base size 35 feet. Morale is fanatic. You're not going to find a lot of simpering dragons that are easily driven off. XP value varies. And again, that's going to be dependent on the size and age of the dragon. as seen at the bottom of the table on the bottom. The Jade Dragon is amongst the most conversational and least hostile on the planet of Mystara. At a distance of 120 feet or more, it cannot be distinguished from a green dragon. An expert viewer might notice that the Jade Dragon is somewhat smaller than its green cousin, more heavyset, and with a thicker and shorter tail, however. At closer range, the dragon's translucent scales shimmer and sparkle in the light, revealing the mighty reptile's true nature. Jade dragons speak their own language in the tongue common to all gem dragons. Combat. The Jade Dragon's breath weapon is a putrid cloud of gas, swirling brown and yellow and green. It has two effects. The first, identical to the Green Dragon's breath, is a blast of choking chlorine gas. It inflicts damage based on the age of the dragon, as described on the table below, and the damage is reduced by half if a save versus breath weapon is successful. The second effect comes into play only if the first saving throw is missed. The victims must make a second saving throw, this time versus poison, or he will become infected with a rotting disease. A living victim cannot be helped by any healing spell or healing item except a cure disease spell. The disease also inflicts 1 point of damage per turn. Characters cannot be reinfected. That is, if a Jade Dragon breathes 3 times, and a character fails all 3 saving throws, the character still suffers only 1 point of damage per turn until the disease is cured, assuming he survives that long. So a turn is like 10 minutes, and so if you failed the saving throw, so you probably got pretty badly whapped by the dragon breath, But let's be generous and say that Fighter McFighterpants has 80 hit points left. That is 800 minutes the character has to live to find a cure disease solution to this problem. Roughly about 12 hours. That has suddenly become your urgent priority. Most people are probably, if you're fighting this kind of dragon, you may have a cure disease in the party, admittedly. This disease also causes all non-metal items in the victim's possession to rot away. Magic items have a save versus acid in 1d6 turns unless a cure disease spell is cast on them during that time. So that's like your clothing, your backpack, your sacks, your provisions. It's really interesting and awkward. Habitat/society. Wooded areas are home to the Jade Dragon. Jade Dragons pride themselves on being cultured, almost urbane creatures. They love to converse philosophically with creatures of all alignments, so as to show off their wisdom, which they at least seem to think is prodigious. In collecting their hoards, Jade Dragons take a special interest in art objects. They may look favorably upon characters who offer them new artwork or interesting pieces of information related to pieces that the dragons already possess. Even a hungry Jade Dragon will be tempted by these prizes. Ecology. The Jade Dragon is omnivorous. It devours all manner of forest creatures when hunger strikes. It may also eat plants. Young saplings and bamboo are its favorite vegetables. So, again, we have, chart. And I'm just going to say, it's a 1 to 12, again. Body length ranges from 2 to 6 all the way up to 105 to 115. Tail length is 2 to 4 at the start, goes all the way up to 64 to 70 feet long. AC starts out at 2, but goes all the way up to -9, right? The -1, which is age 4, right, is your baseline. Smaller dragons have less hit points. Larger dragons have more hit points. More hit dice, I should say. But the breath weapons described are basically set damage for age category. And again, we have spell progression. Seems to be more capable of a more capable spell progression than the Crystalline dragon we had here, and that they're more apt to have more priest spells. Magic resistance also kicks in at the same time, but at a higher degree, at 30% at 5. And the treasure types are definitely different in that it favors an I and Z instead of an A and Q. And then throws it in H and then progresses upwards, but the H and I never turn into multiples. The U's and Z's do. And XP value accelerates in the same fashion, but tops out at 24 instead of 25. So it's, 5, 7, 10, 13, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And that will be the Jade Dragon. Here we have the Onyx Dragon on page 30. And the Onyx Dragon in my hand actually looks a lot like what's being shown on the scan, which is a nice change. It is a little darker in my hand. The wing is a little more blue toned. Everything seems a bit more blue toned in my hand than it does seem here in the scan. The shadow's a little stronger, but it's definitely more visible in this picture. Has these yellow teeth, which are a little more yellow poppy, I feel. And it's just like everything's just a little more vivid, which is a shame. But at least we get the art. It's one of those horn type dragons, as you can see. It's got this forward projecting horns over the eyes. Yes, looks pretty cool. So, Onyx Dragon. Non-Arctic shady wetlands is its climate/terrain. They are very rare. They are solitary or in a clan. Any activity cycle. They are carnivores. Intelligence low, 5 to 7. Treasure special. Alignment neutral, just neutral. As we described before, obviously we would normally go, neutral good, neutral evil. Neutral isn't specified, it's just neutral. Number appearing 1 or 1d4 plus 1, armor class 0 for the base. Movement 12 overland, 30 while flying, again class C type flying. Swims at a 12 as well, so it's faster than Jade Dragon. Hit dice 12 at the base. Thaco is 9 at the base. Number attacks 3. Again, that's 2d4 per claw and 3d6 for a bite. Special attacks vary. Special defenses vary. Magic resistance varies. These are again gigantic, but 30-foot base size. Fanatic morale and XP value will again vary based on age and is listed on the table at the bottom. Onyx dragons inhabit dismal swamps and dark fens. They are not especially intelligent dragons, but are cunning and stealthy when hunting prey. At a distance of 120 feet or more, the onyx dragon cannot be distinguished from a black dragon unless there is bright sunlight, in which case the dragon's bright scales are conspicuous. At closer range, the onyx dragon's lustrous jeweled scales shimmer and sparkle in the light, revealing the mighty reptile's true nature. In sunlight, the onyx dragon's deep black scales shine as brightly as 1,000 mirrors. Onyx dragons speak their own language and the tongue known by all gem dragons. They also know a smattering of common or perhaps another humanoid tongue spoken by creatures nearby. Like, say, for example, like troglodyte or goblin or something like that, right? Combat. The onyx dragon's breath weapon is a cloud of inky black acid, all foulness and corruption. It has 2 effects. The first, identical to the black dragon's breath, is a stream of deadly corrosive acid. Half damage of a save versus breath weapon is successful. The second effect comes into play only if the first saving throw is missed. The victim must make a second saving throw, this time versus spell, or a darkness spell effects. 15-foot radius appears centered on the victim. It moves as he moves. It can be countered by a light spell or removed by a dispel magic. Use the dragon's age category as the opposing caster's spell. Otherwise, it remains for 1 round per hit dice of the dragon. This darkness is a special type, though, through which the dragon can easily see. It otherwise functions exactly as a normal darkness spell. If the second saving throw is successful, the darkness remains but is not tied to the target. Victim can move and escape it. Onyx dragons sometimes use the darkness breath in advance of an encounter to hide themselves and gain surprise. Habitat/society. Onyx dragons lairs in wetlands ranging from the tropics to the chillier fringe of the temperate zones. As a rule, they prefer dark, well-shaded areas such as tree-filled bogs. In darker areas, their scintillating scales are less likely to give away their location to prey. Ecology. Onyx dragons hunt the largest animals in their environments: alligators, herons, manatees, moose, and so forth. They do not hesitate to consume humanoid prey, but they do have enough intelligence to realize that adventurers may be more trouble to kill than the meal is worth. Onyx dragons do value treasure, especially dark and lustrous gems. However, they tend to have less treasure than other dragons. And this is demonstrated on the treasure table by the fact that you have fractional H for a fair bit on here. H at 1/4, H at 1/2. Then you get to a full H only at age 7. They can have Q, of course, and you can get multiple Q on higher ages, starting at age 8. But yeah, that's less treasure than you might expect for a dragon. Again, age is 1 to 12, so our body length is 3 to 6 on basically youngest hatchling, up to 96 to 105 for the most ancient dragon. Tail length 2 to 5 for the youngest, and up to 80 to 87 feet for the oldest ones. AC for a hatchling starts at 3, but again, the base AC would be 0, which would peg it to the age 4, which is a typical, juvenile dragon. But the ancient dragons are all the way to -8. Breath weapons, of course, increase from 2d4 all the way up to 24d4 plus 12. Spells are way more limited. They never get any wizard spells at all. And they only get first level pre-spells, but they can get 1 to 9 of them once they start getting pre-spells. Their magic resistance is also way more limited in that once it kicks in at age 5, it's only 5%, and it only goes up by 5% a tick, up to 40%. XP value is also lower for these, as the age 1 category starts at 2, then 3, 5, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and then topping out at 19,000 XP. So, so substantially probably easier dragon than some of the ones we've read about, but at the same time, it is a big, massive dragon and dangerous, and the XP value is still reflected in that, but it's not as much as some of the other ones we've seen. We will now move on to our last dragon of the day, the Ruby Dragon, which unfortunately repeats the artwork from before at the beginning of the section. I wish they hadn't repeated the artwork. I will just demonstrate by flipping back. You can see here it is, and here it is again, right? My commentary remains for the artwork, and it's the same problems demonstrated throughout the scan, is that it's just a bit more higher contrast, more vivid in my hand than it is in this scan. The horns are blacker, the mouth is blacker, the tongue is blacker, everything is just a little deeper hued, but it is the exact same picture as we had at the beginning of the section, and that is a disappointment in that they could have provided us with just one more piece of art. You didn't need to reuse that here in this book. But at this time, TSR was beginning to suffer some financial problems, so we're lucky to get this lush of an edition of anything at this point. So we're going to carry on. Page 31, the Ruby Dragon. Climate/terrain, non-Arctic hills and mountains, and any subterranean setting. Frequency, very rare. Organization, solitary or clan. Activity cycle, any. Diet, special. Intelligence, very. Treasure, special. Again, that's going to be on the chart below. They are lawful neutral in alignment, but remember the chart from the beginning of the section that some of these may be a percentile of other alignments, being either good or evil. Number appearing will be 1 or 1d4 plus 1. Armor class, -4 at the base. That's going to be for the juvenile age 4 category. Movement, 9 on the ground. Flying, 30 with a C category maneuverability. And they can jump, 3. Hit dice, 14 for the juvenile. And to hit AC, 7 for the juvenile. 3 attacks. Again, each claw is a D8, and the bite is 3d8. So it's a nasty bite. Special attacks vary, defenses vary, magic resistance varies. Size, G, gigantic. This is the biggest dragon we've had here at 48 feet for the base dragon. Morale, fanatic. They're the same morale as all these dragons. And XP value varies. Again, it's going to be on the chart below. At a distance of 120 feet or more, the ruby dragon cannot be distinguished from a red dragon. At closer ranges, the dragon's scales shimmer, revealing the mighty reptile's true nature. Ruby dragons speak their own tongue, the language of common to all gem dragons, plus red dragon. Combat. The ruby dragon's breath weapon appears as a wave of incredible, fiery, melting heat. The weapon has 2 effects. The first is a blast of fire, identical to a red dragon's power. The blast force increases the dragon ages. See the table below. Anyone caught in the blast can have the damage with a successful save versus breath weapon. The second effect comes into play only if the first saving throw is missed. The victim must make a second saving throw, this time versus magical fire, for all non-living items he is carrying. A failed save means these items start to burn or melt. Paper items are destroyed instantly. Leather items in 1 round. All other non-metal items in 2 rounds. And non-magical metal items in 3 rounds. The magical items of all sorts in 4 or more rounds. So just magical items of all sorts in 4 or more rounds. Wow. If the item has bonuses, pluses, add 1 round to the 4-round period for each plus. Items that give immunity or resistance to fire also melt, but in double the normal time. The burning or melting items may be saved if immersed in water before they are destroyed. Cooling is key here, not water, so magical remedies such as Cone of Cold or Ice Storm also halt the damage. DM may choose to deduct 1 or more pluses from partially damaged items. Whatever their age, ruby dragons are completely immune to damage from fire and heat. They delight in frolicking in the flows of magma and lava. Their tough jeweled hide also provides solid protection against cold. They receive a +1 bonus on saving throws versus cold attacks and -1 point of cold damage per die. Habitat Society. Ruby dragons exist in the same habitat red dragons favor. However, they are more willing to venture into higher altitudes, colder climes, and deep underground. Ecology. Ruby dragons are ravenous creatures. They also have a great fondness for the most precious of gems, fused in the mightiest of Earth's furnaces. These dragons will attack dwarves gleefully, knowing the little demi-humans hoard the gems these dragons find so delicious. Characters who find themselves trapped by a ruby dragon have a good chance of buying their freedom by offering to lead the dragon to a cache of gems. Like you just happen to leave a cache of gems lying about. But, maybe they're just lying, right? Maybe it's a promise. Who knows? Let your party work it out. Moving to the table, once again, age 1 to 12. Body length at age 1 is 2 to 11. At age 4, 39 to 57. But at the age 12, 163 to 171 feet long for the body. The tail at that size is 162 to 171 feet. So that's like a 300-foot long dragon. Just imagine it's 30 squares long on the 10 foot long 10-foot scale map is the dragon. Yeah. So, yeah, before you just wheel that out, keep that in mind. Um, AC starts at 1 for the hatchling size and goes all the way to -10. Again, the juveniles in it might -4. Breath weapon, 2d8 plus 1. So this breath weapon uses the d8 instead of the d4, which I will point out. This is a much stronger breath weapon here. Still scales on the plus side by the age of the dragon. Spells definitely favors the priest side in that they don't get any wizard spells until 10, age category 10. And but they definitely get more than a little in the priest side of things. As you can see, where at the top tier they have access up to 5th level priest spell. But the wizard spell doesn't really progress far, with only access to second level spell at that point. But that can be incredibly potent. There are some really strong spells that can be used strategically. Keep that in mind when I would generate any dragon before I gave it to the party. I would make sure I have. If I was going to throw this at the party, I would make sure I have a dragon generated. Magic resistance again kicks in at age 5, starts at 25%, which is quite strong, and again climbs by 5% by age category up to 60. Treasure shows up at the juvenile stage as an E, S, and Q, and then E goes away and becomes H on the chart. And then as we move up the chart, eventually we start getting multiple Qs, but not like lots. The treasure tops out at age category 10. XP value starts at 4,000 and then climbs up to 23. So to contrast, the Crystalline Dragon, tops out at 25 and starts at 5. And the Jade Dragon started at 5 and topped out at 24. This Ruby Dragon, I think, is quite a nasty customer, but starts at 4 and moves to 23. And that is going to be it for the dragons. Now, again, I would say, keep in mind that I would generate a dragon, at least to some degree, before throwing it at the party. You don't want to just randomly... If you have a dragon on your random monster chart or wandering monsters chart, if you intend the party to actually encounter it, I would suggest highly that you have one generated before you begin. And not just randomly walk into throwing a dragon, especially like one of these dragons at the party. These are unusual dragons to begin with, which is why they have their own categories and own description for this book. But, feel free to use dragons. It's just that sometimes you may want to use dragons in a non-combat way, right? If they're an intelligent dragon, they can be used as functionally NPCs. If they are not able to communicate with the party and are unable to express any kind of desires, obviously they become more monsters, right? But you may have a dragon granting quests, that they want things, that they need the party to do things, or desire it as such as tribute or as in payment of their lives, right? Depends on the kind of dragon you're dealing with and the situation, but keep in mind that dragons are going to definitely feel superior to the party, unless it's some kind of super heroic characters you have. Like, if I was introducing a 36th level fighter to the 36th level party to dragon, the dragon's probably going to be seeing them as more of a peer. But at no point is a dragon really going to feel inferior to humans or elves or dwarves, right? They are dragons. They have the ego to match. All that said, that wraps the section. Next time we'll carry on with page 32. We're still not at D, but that has completed the dragons and 5 pages of the book. Thank you very much for spending time with me today. I hope that the new year finds you well, as the new year is coming right up, and the next video should be in 2025. At the point of this recording, it is after Christmas, but still before the new year. And I hope the year of the snake provides you with wealth, fortune, joy, and health, much like dragons. Goodbye, everybody.